Hello, hello, everyone. I am really excited for today's episode because we are going to be chatting about my favorite subject, pleasure.
And how to become an orgasmic woman,
Mm,
and sharing all the ways in which, rather it being a conversation and an exploration, sharing story of all the ways, our journey to becoming an orgasmic woman, and all the ways in which we can inhibit ourselves or feel unsafe to receive pleasure, to receive love
mm.
as women in these bodies that we have.
Yeah, and looking at you now, Samantha, I'm always inspired by how tapped in you are to your feminine, and it only seems to be growing day by day. And I would love for the audience to know more about your journey becoming someone that is so in tune with her feminine and so orgasmic and really allows pleasure to penetrate her with so much ease. So I'd love to know like your journey through that and how that's been for you.
Yes, I've come a long, long way. It's been a long journey. It's funny, I was always a sexual person, but I really struggled to feel, to orgasm or to feel orgasmic energy. They're even making love when I was younger or having sex was really kind of painful for me. And I felt, looking back, I have an awareness that I was really disconnected from my body, my feeling body, and the experience itself. It's more so I was like seeking love. I thought that I could receive love and validation from a man through offering my body in that way, which
Mm.
which didn't play out well, obviously, at the time. And I wasn't taught about self pleasure like so many of us. I didn't really know that that was much of an option. I didn't have that much of a religious conditioning or background until I went to high school. But then again, I don't remember so much having a lot of memories about narratives narratives like that were disempowering around a woman's body and a woman's sexuality. Like, they're there if I really dig deep, but I don't remember it being so explicitly like saying like don't have sex. Like, it was more of a progressive church, if you will. But I actually had a sexual experience with a girl, in my close friend, when I was in elementary school. And I remember when we were being sexual with one another, I thinking in my mind like this is wrong or like this is bad. And like there was this feeling of shame and also like fear that if we were to get caught, like we could get in like really big trouble. So it's in that I remember feeling that a lot when I was younger around like being a sexual being and sexually expressing myself. I remember feeling like it's wrong and I could get in trouble for this. And so I probably internalized that. And then growing up, like I didn't make any time to self pleasure. I kind of thought it was a little like weird or icky. and and then when I would try to self pleasure the few times, like maybe in my late teens, early 20s, I didn't know how to self pleasure myself internally. So I just, stimulated my clit, but it felt really, really arduous and uncomfortable. And it took like a really, really long time. And then like there was, maybe I wasn't so aware, but it felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I orgasm? And because I remember you telling me stories of you with your partner being able to like or achieve orgasm easily, being on top. And that was never the case with me, especially with a partner. Like it was partially not knowing my body and them also not knowing necessarily about women's bodies or what they were doing.
Yeah,
But
or
yeah,
just like what they want or what they like, and not having like the tools to even communicate what it is that you want.
totally. Yeah, that disconnect. If you're disconnected with yourself, there's no way you'll feel confident or empowered to express that with someone else.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that piece you were talking about, feeling shame in sexual experiences, because I experienced so much of that. And I think a lot of that shame came from being the last one out of all my friends for not having sex. And so it was this thing that I was trying to get over with as fast as possible, like losing my
Mm,
virginity. And so I lost it to somebody when I was like blacked out drunk, and I don't even really remember the experience. And I think I held a lot of shame with that. And so it's interesting. It's like I felt shame because I wasn't having sex, and then I ended up having even more shame for like doing it unconsciously and not with someone that I was had a really close relationship or felt safe with. It was just like a random person. And I think those experiences like definitely trickled into my consciousness and way of being like throughout my young adult life. And I remember actually like bragging to some of my friends that saying that, oh, I don't self pleasure, or I don't remember the exact lingo, but I remember just like hearing conversation with girlfriends and them talking about using toys or something. And I was just like, oh, I never do that. Like I was proud of it. And I'm not quite
interesting.
sure where that came from or like why. Yeah, there was no really rational thinking around that. I just remember feeling like that deep rooted insecurity in myself for being a sexual being.
Yes,
um,
it's interesting how shame manifested differently for
yes.
both of us. And I would definitely say that shame being one of the top reasons or ways in which we inhibit ourselves from experiencing pleasure and orgasmic energy and
Mhm.
erotic energy.
Yeah, I think like the root belief that I had was that sex is dirty and that it's like wrong and shameful. Like that was very much rooted, even though it's like something that I wanted, and I knew that deep within I was a sexual being. I didn't really know how to express it or how to access it in a way that felt good for me. Or maybe I didn't even know what that could look like because of all of the
Totally.
ideas and beliefs that I was having around sexuality.
And
Yeah.
also a common thread, which makes sense, is the use and abuse of alcohol, needing to be under the influence of something to even access those states or to feel
Mhm.
comfortable to be
Feel open.
sexual. Yeah,
Yeah.
feel open or to be sexual, which is, yeah, really fascinating. And how that causes more of a shame cycle over
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think both of us really used alcohol in that way to numb the shame or the disconnect around our bodies and our sexuality.
Yeah, because when I was under the influence, I felt it was much more easier to open myself and to be seen in that way, because you are in such a vulnerable place. And
Mm,
I also think I had this really big fear of men going down on me and like seeing my yoni, so that was always a
mm,
thing. And so when I would drink, it would be like, oh, I'm just, loss of inhibitions. It's like you're able to be more open in that state. um yeah, it's very, I think this is a common thing that so many women experience. And I think the journey to being able to express yourself openly and vulnerably in a safe environment really allows you to have those orgasmic states of being and experiences.
absolutely. And that made me think as well, like safe spaces and having mentors and education, like so much lack of education. And then the education we do have is so whack and so fear based.
Mm-hmm.
Like having And this is part of our society that is seriously lacking this piece around education and empowerment around our bodies and our sexual life force energy, our sexual expression. And so having, we just didn't have someone to show us a way, another way that was coming from a place of sovereign choice and empowerment, like I mentioned. Yeah.
I'm curious to know too, what sparked your interest of learning how to tap into more of your feminine and relationship to your sexuality.
Yeah, it's interesting when I reflected back on it. And in this moment, even reflecting on it, I saw some women in Hawaii and in different, the festival scenes. And for me, like sexual energy channeled and expressed in a woman's body comes out as confidence, magnetism, and feminine radiance. So now I have words for it. I didn't back then, but I could see an aliveness in women that I really craved and I longed for. And I had touched and accessed within myself at certain times, but it wasn't sustained or consistent. And I was like, I really want to know like more about that. Like, how do I access that? How do I embody that? And when I moved to Hawaii, that really started to awaken within me, and also went hand in hand with removing alcohol from my life as well, because I saw how much that was harming me and dimming, that light, my feminine radiance. And so wanting to like source that from a really organic place from within, which led me on a path to, I don't know, YouTube YouTube portal, taking me on a journey where I found women like Psalms Isadora and Layla Martin, who has become my teacher. And Layla Martin also, through discovering her work, she taught me about Hridaya, and I went on a journey to Hridaya, and just all these different puzzle pieces like really coming together to support me in healing my relationship to my body and my sexuality. And then through doing her year-long coaching program, that's when it started to click a little bit. Before that, like there would be moments here and there where I was able to tap into my orgasmic potential, but I couldn't, again, it wasn't consistent. And then when I joined her program, she had us self-pleasuring with a glass dildo, among many other things, but we did that 5 days a week essentially. And that's when my body started to reprogram.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people might hear 5 times or 5 times a week, that might seem like so excessive and much. What would you say to someone that's like, I don't have time for that? That's like, that's way too much. Even like once a day, like I think people are afraid of putting themselves first, putting their pleasure first.
Yeah, this comes back to all the ways in which we've been programmed and conditioned to, as you said, not prioritize ourselves or our pleasure. And I always kind of question people who say I don't have enough time, because we have an abundance of time. It's more so about how we choose to prioritize our time and how we choose to use our energy. And if we got real with ourselves, I think that many people could see all the ways in which we distract or procrastinate, especially with social media being a really big one. I know people have really busy lives as well. I have a pretty spacious life, and sometimes I even feel like it's challenging, but again, I'm not creating that space for it. and I could, but I think it's okay, and to be like really compassionate and kind to yourself. That was an intense, immersive experience.
Yeah.
So I think even Layla Martin has said that she, she doesn't do that like every day. She has little pleasure practices throughout her day, but like she says it's kind of rare for her, like maybe like once or twice a year she's lucky if she can do like a longer self-pleasure session. But for me, I go through waves and periods in my life where I'm self-pleasuring more, and that's a journey in itself. It's a lifelong relationship and cultivation, and I want to kind of distill it down. But for that time period, it was really necessary because it was this process of purification with my body and literally retraining my nervous system to orient it to receive pleasure and to build a capacity for orgasmic energy in my body. Because even when I self pleasure now, I can still have energies or thoughts that come in that say like it's not safe, or are you like allowed to feel this good? Are you allowed to like feel this much pleasure in your body? And I have to, it's like a meditation practice. It's like, you acknowledge these thoughts, they're there, you welcome them, but you don't give your power to them. And so it's a continual process of like coming back home to your body, coming back home to your breath, and choosing a new reality, choosing a new way of being and operating in the world that feels more true to yourself. And
hallelujah.
Yeah. So good. So, there is so much like compassion, being the witness of loving, compassionate awareness for yourself is number one, ultimately, because of all the conditioning, societal, familial, religious conditioning that has been in our collective, in our personal lives, but also in the collective field for thousands and thousands of years. And also, there was a large time period where women who were in their sexual and spiritual power were literally being murdered, all the witch hunts that were going on. And so women, that's in our DNA, that's in our family lineage, and that's in our bodies. They call it ancestral chi, which is passed down in our actual DNA, just like other physical ailments. And so we are in our psyches and in our bodies, we're working against years and years of patriarchy, misogyny, and fear around being in our power, being in our feminine radiance. And there's so much around that has been internalized, whether we're completely aware of it or not. And so it is, again, it's a lifelong cultivation, coming into right relationship with your whole self, your whole being, and all these different parts that are a part of you. And that's what I love about self-pleasure, because it brings all of that up in a really safe and sacred container, and you're able to alchemize it through using your sexual energy and your loving thoughts and intention. Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's powerful. I feel like it's like a really missing piece for so many women, even men. I mean, it looks differently for them, but it's just like a reclamation of the most sacred, intimate, and beautiful parts of ourselves, like reclaiming everything as sacred and really living from that place of sacredness. It like transforms your relationship to everything. It transforms your entire life.
Yes, I've definitely experienced that.
I'm curious, like, how was the shift for you when you got
Mm.
a glass dildo and started to like be more intentional with your self-pleasuring too? How was that experience for you?
Well, I'd say like you were definitely the biggest influence in my curiosity for my relationship with my own sexuality and my body and self pleasure. And so I pretty much just went on my own journey through witnessing you, and I started off with yoni wands, like crystal wands. I didn't get a glass wand up until quite recently, actually. But
They're pretty similar.
I yeah.
Mm.
The wand though is a straight shape, so it's a bit different, but I still had just like incredible opening orgasms that had me in tears, and I feel like I
Mm.
released so much energy. And um yeah, I think I started off with really the intention of going slow and like staying curious as to how I could explore my body through using like these wands. And I started off first with the obsidian wand, which is a black stone, and it's very powerful, super grounding. And I I remember the first time that I used it, I like I was saying before, I had just so much emotions come up, and I feel like I accessed different areas of my yoni that I never felt before. And there was even like some feelings of like tightness and contraction. And once I was able to actually get to orgasm, like I felt a lot of that release. And again, I had that experience with the obsidian wand. And then from there, I played around with different toys, and I feel through building my own sensitivity through my self pleasure practice, like it transformed my lovemaking with a partner like exponentially. And I was able to actually be more present with them.
Mm.
And I think from the beginning, having the intention of going slow and being more present with myself really trickled into like other areas of shared intimacy with others, and other areas of life as well, because it's allowing me to just be more in my body, more in a place of receptivity
Mm.
and my radiance. So
Mm.
yeah, that's a little bit of my journey exploring my own self-pleasure. But I'd say too, even just using movement and that as a pleasure practice has been really transformative for me as well. And seeing how I can touch myself in different ways other than not just my yoni, but like my breasts and my whole body. And how can I move like slower and be more with myself in the moment? Um, and it's really incredible how we can access pleasure in like so many different areas of life and with our bodies.
Yeah, it's really limitless,
Yeah.
infinite. And
Because
I love,
I think, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'll go after.
Um, I think a lot of people think when they think of pleasure and everything that we're talking about, like it's all about orgasm and all about maybe penetration or like getting to orgasm. But I feel that it's just so much more complex than that. And we're able to really access so much radiance and magic and beauty within ourselves when we're open to playing with this energy.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It's revolutionary what you said about like going slow and being present with yourself, because that's so counter to how our modern age
Mhm.
is really designed and set up. And there's something on this shameless sex podcast I love. They say go slow and then slower than slow,
Mm.
to really be fine tuned to that moment to moment feeling of our physical body, of the sensations arising in our body moment to moment, because of the immense wisdom that is available to us through this divine vessel, our bodies.
Mhm.
And yeah, I definitely, like, with the work, don't like dive right into the yoni. Like, it takes time, and starting with your whole body, as you said, like really giving love to every part of your body. And for so many of us, we our bodies have been a place of that has holds a lot of fear, and we've grown up to and conditioned that our bodies are not safe. And so many women numb, disconnect, dissociate, like are constantly leaving our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a practice of, like I said earlier, coming home to your body and being like, I love how you said the pleasure for you is more just being present
Mm-hmm.
with your experience with life moving through you as you. So it's really
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, because I think my way of being for so long was just like racing and rushing and like going from one thing to the next and getting like a quick dopamine hit and then chasing like that next thing after. But really, when like through self-pleasure and slowing down with myself, it's really allowed me to really witness like the beauty that's in between the transitions and the spaces in our lives. And this is something I love to teach my clients as well, is like, how can you drop into the moment more and not be racing to the next moment? Like, how can you bring more pleasure to the space in between?
Yeah, I definitely still struggle with this.
I mean, I do too. It's like, it's a practice, but when you
Totally.
can really have that reminder every now and then, it's very powerful.
Oh my God, it's so valuable to have people in your life that mirror this back to you and remind you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's so much that we want to avoid feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's why I love actually having a self-pleasure practice with your glass wand, because it really does help reprogram the nervous system and the subconscious mind to help you get to that place where it's more integrated throughout your entire life. So I'm like both, and like making space for connecting with pleasure in a myriad of different ways throughout your life, throughout your day, and also making at least once a week. Like, we got this. Once a week, we can put aside 30 minutes, lock the door, turn off the phone, put on some music, some incense, candles, music, have the pillows and the soft blankets, create your temple space and do that connection practice. And it doesn't always have to end up with penetration necessarily. I mean, working towards feeling safe and comfortable to have internal vaginal orgasms is deeply, deeply healing and activating for women. And you mentioned something too, like pain, or having tension inside your yoni. We store so much stress, trauma, tension in our pelvic region, in our yoni, in our womb. And so being present, sounding like when I have my glass dildo and I hit a point that's really, really painful or just tight, I'm just warming up as well. And I definitely recommend women to give themselves a really generous breast, yoni, body massage before even going there. But when you hit that point that feels uncomfortable, like sounding, and it could be like ugly, like screams and guttural sounds. It doesn't have to be like like it could. It's like it's like,
Yeah.
you want to like release some of that. Like you don't want to be holding that in. And I notice like how much deeper I can go and how it dissipates that tension. And it's not always like a pretty process. That's why it's so important to have it a regular practice by yourself in this way, because it really does retrain our nervous systems, which have been wired to want to keep going to the next thing. So I'm so grateful we have both found
The Holy Grail.
the Holy Grail. Yeah, the Holy Grail is us. We are that.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to you mentioned earlier, but I didn't speak to it, but I have been able to easily orgasm one way on top of a partner. And I've found that through self-pleasure and finding what feels good for me, I've been able to orgasm in different ways. So like, even though, I have been able to orgasm in that way, like this has opened up so many portals to experience different things and to feel more safe to explore as well. Cause I think I, for so long, had a lot of fantasies and all these things that I wanted to try, but again, like had so much shame and reprogramming to do around that. And now that I have moved through all of that through self-pleasure being the main modality, I've been able to feel more confident in like asking for what I want and to explore new things with my partner. Like for one, me and my one partner now are really into playing with ropes with each other, and it's the funnest thing ever. And it's something that I've been wanting to play with for years. And to be in this place where I feel confident in asking for that, I feel like I've been able to meet a partner that I can share that with and feel totally safe and comfortable.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you have a partner that is like so open and willing to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's priceless to have someone who is supportive of, at least trying the things that you might be curious about or interested in. And again, the reprogramming, because we can be really used to, even there's nothing wrong with vibrators, but for example, using vibrators can train your body to access orgasm in this one way. So for me, it was also a progression of learning how to orgasm by myself first and foremost, and then slowly being able to feel safe and comfortable to do that with a partner. And now, like, me and my partner, you don't have to do this, of course, but we love to like orgasm at the same time. So we're able to do that every time if we want to. And before, that was like so foreign and like felt impossible for me. But it's what's called blended pleasure. So if you're used to, and it requires a lot of patience with oneself and compassion. But if you're used to having orgasm in one way, as you mentioned that you were before, it's a process of self-pleasuring in that way that you're used to attain orgasm. But like, if you want to have like a nipple-gasm, just for example, like massaging your nipples while you're stimulating your clit with your vibrator, and using breath and energy and intention and focus, like being able to activate your nipples as orgasmic while you're stimulating your clit in a certain way. And over time, and going slow and pausing and taking breaks, again, being really patient with yourself, you'll be able to spread that pleasure to different parts of your body. And even sometimes for me, like missionary for me is like the easiest to orgasm in. And I think I really like it because I can see my partner and like we're really intimate. And then also like something about the tongue and the kissing like really activates my orgasm as well. I mean, the tongue and the clit are connected. But I've been able to like have orgasm from behind or from the side. It doesn't happen as often, and it feels like a little bit more of a struggle sometimes, but it's through this process of like having that intention and being really patient with yourself. Was there a process for you, or did that just kind of naturally start to happen where you could have orgasm in different
I feel like,
parts?
well, what you just said, I started to, while I'm self-pleasuring, like touch other parts of my body. And I don't know if this is something that I learned, but it felt very intuitive to me, like just to explore different parts of myself. And so, like touching my neck and like massaging my breasts and like touching my whole body. Like there's so many access points that we can touch. And I think there's just, again, so much focus like on the yoni and the clit. And so being open to explore different areas. And I'm a massage therapist, so it's like I love bodies, I love touching. And so I'm like, why not just let myself touch myself more in different ways and
spread the love.
yeah, I think like through that, I was like, whoa, like there's so much more to play around with and experience. Like, yeah, I was missing out on a lot, I think.
Totally.
And
We
I
limit
think,
ourselves
yeah,
because we don't know. Well, that's
yeah.
lack of education, mentorship.
And I think from there, I was able to guide my partners more and say like, oh, can you do this? Because I think they also too are like in this habit of just like going immediately to the yoni. And even now, like I'm still training my partner to explore different areas, but he just like really loves going there straight away. And I'm like, let's just slow it down a little bit and like make out a little bit more. Maybe you can like massage me. And like he's amazing to receive that feedback because he's more than willing to, but he's also too like, in his habits and ways of doing things.
Absolutely. And doing this work really helps the sacral chakra is connected to the throat. So being able to know about yourself, but also feel confident and secure in yourself to voice that and ask for what you want. It's huge.
Yeah, something that I love to do that I just started doing with my partner is having like play dates where it's like we play with sensation. And so through these experiences, you're like in a container where the intention is to explore and to see what each other likes and what they don't like. And so that way, when you come to a more lovemaking session where there's more, I don't know what to call, like there's more of a likelihood that penetration will happen, then it's like you already know like what each other likes and doesn't like. And so then there's not like a awkward moment that could happen where you're like, oh, I really don't like that, or I do like that. You have that awareness already. So those experiences have been really fun for me to play with.
Yeah, it's like training. It's
training.
like athletes. I love this analogy. Like athletes train so freaking much before a game or
the main event.
Yeah. And so it's like, why do we think that we don't have to do that for lovemaking, for intimacy? And yeah, having those spaces where it's like, even when like no penetration, no orgasm, like taking that off the table to take away that expectation or that charge. Yeah, the pressure. And I love what you said, like sometimes, like making a really sensual experience and like getting a blindfold, getting like feathers and different textiles and like aromas and like sounds and all these different ways. Because we've been taught in this also about erotic blueprints, which you actually introduced me to, I believe, is like there's so much more than just being like hypersexual beings. People who, this is like more mainstream, who can just like go straight to penetration, like to fuck right away. And then there's people who are more sensual, who really need to be aroused through their five senses. And then there's energetic, right? Who like the anticipation and more of like energy play and energy orgasms. And yeah. And then what's the other one?
There's kinky, which is
kinky,
all of the taboo things like rope play and BDSM sort of thing.
Right.
And then
but that could also be like making love in public spaces, or not always like balls and whips.
Yes. But just like, I think it's like things out of the ordinary,
Right. Combination.
So you talked about sexual, sensual, energetic. Oh, and then there's shapeshifter, which is a combination of all those. And interestingly enough, when I took this quiz maybe a year or two ago, I was energetic, but now that I have explored my sexuality even more, I took it again recently, and now I'm shapeshifter, and it's amazing to see like that now I enjoy the full spectrum of all these different ways of experiencing pleasure. And yeah, it's so good.
Moral of the story, you are not broken. If something hasn't worked for you, it doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that there's a room to explore and discover more about yourself. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And you might think that there's like one way that you like to be touched, or there's one way that you like to have orgasm. But I think being open and curious to other ways of experiencing things through exploring your own body like really opens you up to a whole portal of different ways of
it's so essential to have
experiences.
that beginner's mind, like the
Mhm.
childlike curiosity and wonder
Mhm.
when exploring any part of yourself, really. But yeah, having that open, receptive and mind and heart when it
Mhm.
comes to these matters will make it more fun, more pleasurable. Because you also said too, like even, I mean, even if awkwardness arises, it's like,
Mhm.
so what, you know, like
Yeah.
who cares? Like it's funny ultimately, but it doesn't always come to that place
Mhm.
initially, because there can be so much sensitivity and charge and vulnerability around around intimacy and sex and connecting with a partner. So like having these conversations outside of the bedroom, or
Yes.
and slash you've mentioned creating like play
Play date.
spaces, yeah, play
Mhm.
dates. I
Mhm.
love it.
Yeah, I love some of the first questions that my partner now asked me the first night that we connected.
Oh, what were
He
they?
he was like, how do you like to receive touch? What
Mm,
brings you the most pleasure? How do you like to touch people? Like those sort of questions. And I've never had um, a partner ask those questions like right off the bat. And then he asked, what are some things that are like absolutely not that you're not into, or
hard no.
hard nose? Yeah.
Totally.
And I think having those questions right off the bat allowed me to feel so much more safe in my body to open to
Mhm.
him and to connecting in deeper ways. And um, I think if more people had that communication and the openness to ask the more vulnerable questions, we would all feel more safe to be in our bodies and to explore our sexuality.
Safety is foundational.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's good to know more about your partner too. I feel like I both shared stuff that I feel like I've never quite vocalized or shared with anyone before.
I
I
know. I haven't talked about much in the public until now.
love it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This conversation has been so wonderful.
I know. I could talk about it all day long.
Mm, and we will in the future. So keep coming back. We love we love you all. Thank you for spending this time with us, because we know that your time is sacred and precious.
Yeah. If you have any ideas or topics that you want us to cover, feel free to reach out to us either on the Pleasure Alchemy Podcast Instagram, or me or Samantha's private Instagram. We would love to hear from you.
And Janessa and I both work one-on-one with clients,
Mhm.
and I'm opening 3 spots right now for one-on-one personalized coaching. And you can reach me directly through my platform as well. Janessa, are you offering anything at this moment?
I am. My signature offer right now is the embodied woman, and I have 7 spaces open, and it's a combination of group coaching and one-on-one work. And we do amazing, amazing practices and rituals and embodiment work to allow us to tap into our
Mm,
emotions, to feel safe in our body, to experience orgasmic pleasure and all the juicy things.
yes. Sign me up. I love it.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time and have a fabulous day.
Bye.
Bye.